Hey there, YouTube community. Here I am with episode 5 of movie reviews. Yep, this is, wait, no, it's not episode 5, it's actually episode 4. Yep, I'm right. It's episode 4. And, yeah. In episode 4, I know before I said I was going to do Silence of the Lambs. Well, that might wait for an even later one, like maybe episode 6, or maybe 7 or 8. But I'm gonna be reviewing a movie that I watched last weekend, almost a week ago. I've actually seen this movie several times, even before this, and I am a huge Robin Williams fan. I mean, Robin Williams is one of my favorite actors in Hollywood. So, with further ado, I'm going to review a movie that not exactly everybody really knows Robin Williams for, but it's still nonetheless a masterpiece, though. This movie is called The Fisher King. The Fisher King, yep, it's a classic from 1991. It's got, medieval themes and elements to it, while at the same time it's in the early 90s. And it's a really good movie, and it co-stars Jeff Bridges. I haven't seen a whole lot with him, other than the fact that I did see that one kind of horror movie with him and Kiefer Sutherland called The Vanishing, where he played a bad guy in that. And yeah, I will even admit, Jeff Bridges, he does look a little like Sandman from Spider-Man 3, but I know he didn't play him. That was Thomas Hayden Church, but to me, I think the two kind of look a little bit of alike physically, and they even kind of talk alike too. But I know they're completely different actors, and they probably aren't even related either, even though they can pass as maybe cousins at best. But anyway, it's even got Amanda Plummer from So I Married an Axe Murderer, who played the real Mrs. X, so to speak. And it's the girl that Robin Williams' character is chasing after. And it's even got Q at one part from Star Trek, John D. Lancey. And see, this is like pretty much like one of the very few things I've seen John D. Lancey play a live action part in other than Star Trek. So I kind of got more of a liking for this movie than the average person would, I would say, or at least most people out there who would like this movie just for Robin Williams and not for really anything else. Maybe other than the fact Jeff Bridges, they're that into Hollywood, but that's a little beside the point. But the whole thing is, this movie came out like in fall of 91. I was too young at the time to even watch this or even see movies in general. I was just practically limited to Sesame Street. That was about it. My mom and dad didn't really start letting me watch Saturday morning cartoons till even after my brother was born. It was crazy. Yep. Even though I had a few Ninja Turtle toys here and there, I mean, I really wasn't even to get into like more of it until like much later in life. But that's beside the point. I mean, the whole thing about 1991 though is that this movie ain't the only movie to come out that year that like has like all these medieval and ancient props and even like stories and all that, because Robin Hood Prince of Thieves also came out that year, and I may do a review on that because it's like pretty much my overall favorite Robin Hood film too. And even there was an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation to feature a Robin Hood themed episode, when Q puts Picard and the senior crew of the Enterprise into the Sherwood Forest and everything, and Nottingham and everything. But anyway, I guess that's a little bit too long of an intro there. I mean, because I don't really have a whole lot to say because I was too young when this movie came out in theaters, other than the fact that I know 1991 seemed to be the year for Robin Hood or Robin Hood-esque material. But like I said, that's maybe more or less irrelevant. On to the main part of this. I'm going to start talking about the movie. Now, my last review on The Mask, I got a little too comfortable. I probably maybe even put my hands on positions that kind of seemed a little unorthodox and everything. That's just because I was kind of having a rough day that day. But I thrive on intensity and power and everything, so what can you really do? At least this week, it's a little less intense for me, and at least as of today is. So, with further ado, I'm going to go on ahead. All right, enough of the less relevant stuff. I'm going to go on ahead right now and talk about the Fisher King. And as you can see, I've got some medieval pictures in the background. All right, I'm finally gonna shut up about everything else, and we're gonna jump right into the movie right here, right now. The Fisher King. The opener starts with Ray Charles' "Hit the Road, Jack, and Don't You Come Back No More," as it's a theme song to Jack Lucas, played by Jeff Bridges in this movie. It's his opening show theme for his radio broadcast. I'm obviously kind of doing like a 2022 radio broadcast more or less right now, even though this ain't live or anything. I know it's going to be uploaded, visible for anybody from the World Wide Web to see. So yeah, I'm going to talk about, I'm basically kind of doing what Jack Lucas would do, and a lot of other people do it from their very own homes now too, and even if they're a disc jockey or any of that, they even do that from their homes now that the 2020 lockdown occurred. But anyway, he's doing his show. He it shows him like doing a little bit of stuff with some of his callers and everything, having a talk with them, because he's obviously an over-the-radio, more or less, psychiatrist. And he gets a call from another one of his avid tune-in listeners who frequently calls his show. And apparently he talks about his life and everything, about how he's miserable and all that and stuff. And Jack Lucas even gives him advice about the bar that he's been attending and everything, about just what he could do about his life and everything. And he kind of goes a little over the top and says it's us or them. Well, the guy goes probably maybe even too out of proportion with this. He goes to the bar and murders a whole bunch of people. Then turns the gun on himself, you know. I mean, it's obviously the guy that called in on Jack Lucas's show had a death wish on him. And he suffered from mental health problems and everything, and had a very low emotional health state, which led him to suicide, and before killing himself, killing everybody in that bar. Not exactly everybody, but he killed a whole lot of them and maimed or wounded some too. And boy, I can imagine for those who were to witness this would really change them forever, wouldn't it? I got a drink diet now because I'm a diabetic. Can't even drink regular sweet tea anymore. It's crazy. Unless I can reverse my diabetes by losing more weight. Alright. Okay, after this happens, it's in the news about what happened and all that, but Jack's show is still pretty much successful and everything. You can even see what kind of a luxurious living lifestyle Jack has. He lives in an apartment. I mean, it's not really a penthouse, but it's a pretty high up story, you know, and all that. It's, you know, it's basically, you know, up in the sky. I mean, right when you look out the window, you can't even really see any trees or any of that. Just other tops of other tall buildings, if anything else. And, you know, he's pretty high up in the air where he's got his apartment. He's even got a girlfriend that obviously has one of those shorter bob cuts that women started wearing in the 90s. I mean, there is like late 80s, 90s nostalgia in this movie, which would probably make people feel inclined to watch this movie, even if they're not a Robin Williams fan or a Jeff Bridges fan, whatever. And yeah, just see how all of a sudden, you know, Jack is just, after he realized he drove a person to becoming a murderer and killing himself, he just, you know, his show is on the decline now. He wants to make an announcement, forgive me. Might be I mean, I'm just recalling certain stuff. I mean, seeing is the fact that I haven't seen this movie enough times to know 100%. I'm just saying this all from my own point of view out of how many times I have watched this movie. And it's been on HBO for a while, and I think it's still on HBO Max even as of right now. And I get HBO on my Hulu channels, and I get HBO Max. And, it's streaming on there for your viewing pleasure, I think, even right now, so probably go watch that. If not, if it ain't on there anymore, you can purchase it, download it from the Microsoft Store. If you have a Microsoft account or Xbox, you can just download the movie and purchase it. It's relatively cheap, too. It's amazing that we got so much digital, really easily accessible stuff now, even including this movie, which I can imagine 20 years ago, the only way to really see this movie if it wasn't on TV was to rent it, because it seemed like not a lot of video stores really would have this firsthand, usually. But anyway, yeah, I'm going way off topic even more now. All right, all with the forgive me stuff and everything. 3 years passed. Yeah, 3 years pass after this. Jack is no longer a disc jockey. He no longer has that radio show. Now he's struggling with a reason to live. He's got a gorgeous, very confident, outgoing girlfriend and all that, but even that can't really save him from his pain, obviously. And it's like, Jack now just, like I said, he's struggling with a reason to live. He's completely aloof. He doesn't give a shit about anybody. He just, is that detached from emotion now and all that, too. It's like, boy, man, you just wouldn't even want to really talk to this guy or even approach him, want to get involved with him at all. I mean, you would be, like, that afraid to even, like, talk to him. He's already this intimidating now. Anyway, yeah, he's now working at the video store for his girlfriend that his girlfriend owns, because she also owns the apartment just above this store. And apparently, oh gosh, I have a little itch like below my knee, but I already took care of it. Anyway, yeah, he's living here. And yeah, and just above it, and he even helps his girlfriend run the store and works there and all that. And apparently the video store she has includes porno flicks. It was hard to come by those back in the day, and it's something that Blockbuster never would have took into consideration, even at the time. But yeah, I mean, she has practically like a vast number of titles to rent and all that. And then Jack is already getting ready to start his workday. And all of a sudden, there's this overly chatty, over high-spirited woman who's just flat out annoying. Seems to be indecisive and all that, too, and just completely needy. Like, she just won't even shut up. And she just asks him for, like, recommendations of all the sorts of movies she's into. He grabs one off the shelf and just throws it right at her, makes that instant suggestion, and then his girlfriend, not really happy with his behavior, even though she wants to help him and loves him and all that. I mean, she still doesn't like the way he treats people in society and everything, even though he obviously just doesn't have that good of a job anymore, as happy of a life, at least from his perspective. And yeah, his girlfriend, keep forgetting his girlfriend's name in this movie, but anyway, yeah, I know she like wears all that jewelry. She's extremely outgoing and all that, and happy, just flat out flamboyant, even to the point where probably get on somebody's nerves here and there, since she's just that bubbly. And yeah, she tells him to take the day off and all that, or encourages him to, and he goes upstairs and all that. Then later they're watching a sitcom. She's laughing her head she's laughing her head off at it, but Jack just doesn't find it amusing anymore, because apparently the "forgive me" quote that he was going to use from that sitcom didn't end up saving him or anything. People still have a negative opinion about him because of what he drove that man into doing. Yeah, and him and his girlfriend can't see eye to eye here. And since him and his girlfriend can't see eye to eye, they get into a fight, and he decides to unwind. Unlike most men these days, when stuff like this happens between them and their girlfriend or spouse or even wife, they go to a grocery store and go into the bathroom stalls. But in 1991, I guess, if you were living in New York City, instead of a bathroom stall in a grocery store or something, you would go to Central Park in the middle of the night, where all the dangerous people lurk. And Jack, he goes into Central Park, and he runs into two men. One half of them being played by Dan Butterman, who was also in The Birdcage. He played Robin Williams' son in that, and obviously Nathan Lane was the gay mother of him. Yeah, see, that's the thing, Robin Williams and Dan Butterman worked on two projects together. And, yeah. See, in this one, he wasn't even related or anything. But anyway, yeah, him and the other guy, they're about to light Jack on fire. Till Robin Williams, Perry, comes to his aid. Now, Perry, he's a man who's dressed up as Robin Hood, lives a medieval life and everything because he's that crazy. He's turned insane and all that. It's hard for him to stay sane. I'll get to that here in a few minutes, but yeah, he apparently saves and rescues Jack from the two people who are about to light him on fire. And Perry, it turns out like he's, even though he's crazy, at the same time he's a very considerate individual because he offers Jack shelter, which is in the boiler room of an apartment. And he's decorated it and has made it into like a medieval house. Because he don't really live like it's 1991. He still lives like in the medieval days. Because of how depressed he is and crazy and just the only way he thrives to survive and live is to live like it's the medieval days, where you steal from the rich, give to the poor, and blah, yada 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 that. But yeah, he apparently even talks to Jack about his problems and what he experiences and everything and how he lives life, and even mentions February 1988, which was obviously when the incident occurred about his radio show, and that listener taking his advice that too seriously, and killing those people and murdering them. Well, Jack, of course, kind of finds it a little suspicious at this point, and he finds Perry to be a very peculiar person. And, yeah, after he had a good night's sleep and everything, even though he's covered in gasoline, Jack decides to go home. He bids Perry adieu. And as he's coming out of the boiler room, the owner of the apartment, this African-American man, who seems like he's a pretty caring, considerate individual himself, he, at first he thinks that Jack is another one of those guys that hangs out in the park and all that, and that apparently he was Perry's friend. He gives him this detail when he mentioned February 1988 was when his wife was killed and everything, and apparently it was all his fault, or at least he feels like it was, because of what happened to his show. And you could tell she looked like she was very beautiful, and she was very nice. Usually if they're that beautiful and nice, they're most inevitably going to be taken by somebody pretty fast. I mean, you could tell, seeing that Perry, himself, he looked like he was quite a lucky man to be married to this beautiful, stunning woman. And she was murdered by the guy who called in at the beginning of the movie, and that's the reason why Perry has been acting so peculiar the whole time, is because of what Jack did, and pretty much the whole reason why he's just completely standoffish and has like suicidal thoughts and everything. Why he just acts the way he does and does all the stuff. But yeah, and after he visits with the apartment manager of where Perry's staying, he arrives home, and his girlfriend is just, she's pleased to see him, but she's also, you know, pretty concerned and worried about him and everything. And he even reminds her that and tells her that two reminds that two guys tried to set him on fire and all that, and he was still in a lot of physical pain and everything. And because, you know, she kisses him, and he like tells her, "I have a cut here," and, you know, stuff. And from there, can't really exactly remember what happens next, but the next part I do recall, though, is that Jack goes back into the city. He meets back up with Perry, because I think Jack actually does care about Perry a lot and all that, and appreciates his consideration and everything, and realizes that him and Perry are obviously have some sort of linkage, you know. I mean, you know, Jack's still trying to build back up his confidence and his and you know, trying to, you know, weep away his insecurities, while Perry, of course, is looking for the Holy Grail, because apparently he has a wound that needs to be healed also. And yeah, and while at the same time, you know, while Perry's also seeking the Holy Grail, he's infatuated by this woman who he regularly sees throughout the city. It's a woman named Lydia, and she's played by Amanda Plummer. She's got short hair and everything, and she's a shy, accident-prone type of woman, you know, and she doesn't really seem to really interact with people much. You know, you think she'd kind of be a little more Jack's type at this rate. And yeah, and she, you know, goes to the newsstand and, you know, buys a certain thing every day. She even buys Jawbreakers. I mean, hey, even before the Ed, and Eddie existed, you know, like, technically, you know, 8 years before that, Lydia from the Fisher King was a Jawbreaker girl and this stuff. And it's the regular Jawbreakers, not the really big ones that look like basketballs from Ed, and Eddie. And yeah, she and does all this stuff, and he basically just follows her around and all that because he finds her fascinating and everything, and thinks that he would want to maybe at least date her, you know, to see if it does work out and everything. And Jack realizes this, and Jack even gives Perry $60 and stuff, and apparently after he does that, I mean, Perry then decides to help somebody else like Jack helped him, but then Jack all of a sudden sees Perry doing it. He's like, I gave that to you, not to help him and stuff. I kind of know the feeling, because I've been generous to people and all that, and have been backstabbed for, you know, because sometimes I like no longer have room for something, or just give something to somebody of mine, like an old video game, out of the goodness of my heart. Then they turn it around and they give it to somebody else. That's, you know, when you do that to people, even like in Perry's sense, that's not really a good way to treat somebody. I mean, you could even tell that, you know, Perry's just this peculiar to where he'll just like practically act on impulse whenever he's around Jack. And even runs into the clown from Air Bud, Michael Jeter. You know, he's another one of those like kind of more or less merry men figures. And there's even Tom Waits in the Subway, who played Milo Redfield in Bram Stoker's Dracula, which came out like a year after this did. I'll have to review Bram Stoker's Dracula with Gary Oldman as Dracula, because that's like one of the best ones. Okay, and for Halloween, I'll probably make more of these, and I'll probably do like maybe two movie reviews on like a couple of Halloween flicks, and Bram Stoker's Dracula may be one of the ones I review, but I don't have the movie. I just hope that Netflix probably gets it back for a little bit so I can watch it one more time before I review it. Anyway, I'm getting off topic here. Okay. And then later that night, yeah, after this happens, Jack and Perry are in the middle of Central Park, in the middle of the field, and Robin Williams, Perry, he strips nude. You could even catch a little glimpse of his downstairs. And he's like just dancing, completely naked. He only has his gloves on, that's it. Just his gloves on his hands is the only thing he kept on. He removed everything else, including his underpants. And yeah, he's just completely streaking in the middle of the field. And then it leads to Perry and Jack just lying down, watching the clouds with the moon and everything. In fact, I think full moons actually look better in that format myself. Like when there's clouds surrounding it. Gives it more of an interesting view and not as boring. And then, after Perry realizes that Jack's not a happy camper, he decides to tell him the story about the Fisher King, which is this.
It begins with the king as a boy, having to spend the night alone in the forest to prove his courage so he can become king. And while he's spending the night alone, he's visited by a sacred vision. Out of the fire appears the Holy Grail, symbol of God's divine grace. And a voice said to the boy, "You shall be keeper of the Grail so that it may heal the hearts of men." But the boy was blinded by greater visions of a life filled with power and glory and beauty. And in this state of radical amazement, he felt for a brief moment not like a boy, but invincible, like God. So he reached in the fire to take the Grail, and the Grail vanished, leaving him with his hand in the fire to be terribly wounded. Now as this boy grew older, his wound grew deeper, until one day, life for him lost its reason. He had no faith in any man, not even himself. He couldn't love or feel loved. He was sick with experience. He began to die. One day, a fool wandered into the castle and found the king alone. Now, being a fool, he was simple-minded. He didn't see a king. He only saw a man alone and in pain. And he asked the king, "What ails you, friend?" The king replied, "I'm thirsty and I need some water to cool my throat." So the fool took a cup from beside his bed, filled it with water, and handed it to the king. As the king began to drink, he realized his wound was healed. He looked at his hands, and there was the Holy Grail, that which he sought all of his life. He turned to the fool and said with amazement, "How could you find that which my brightest and bravest could not?" The fool replied, "I don't know. I only knew that you were thirsty."
And he tells that inspirational story to Jack that we just heard. And from there, Jack grows closer to Perry and everything. Perry, yeah, he told that story to him about the Fisher King. And he even decides, he's kind of wondering at this point, what can I do to heal Perry the way the boy healed the king? because he realizes that that story actually relates to the two of them. You know, the boy is Jack, and the Fisher King is Perry here. And even though he is in denial over it, and he does everything he can to kind of like think that it's just ridiculous and a bunch of mumbo jumbo, blah blah blah. He still, you know, I mean, he thinks it would probably make Perry happy if he could like fix him up on a date with Lydia, the girl that he likes. Luckily enough, he knows the place she works at or the number, and knows her name and everything, like her full alias. And well, I think she just yeah, because Lydia works there. Luckily enough, she's the only Lydia there. Boy, don't know why I'm just rambling on here, but yeah, that happens, and Jack and his girlfriend do like a, you know, like she won a contest and everything, although she is well aware that she did not do it, and she says she doesn't have a VCR, saying that we'll give you a free VCR until you buy one. And Perry comes along. Jack, his girlfriend, and Perry welcome Lydia to the video store, and yeah, I mean, it officially was pulled off after the clown from Air Bud dressed up like Marilyn Monroe and like did like a advertisement. That was enough to convince her to go to the video store. And you know, as always, Lydia's accident prone. She goes over to like a movie shelf or two and knocks a whole bunch of them over. And apparently she doesn't really seem to really be that much into movies, because she seems to be the type of woman that would kind of is a little bit more serious. She doesn't really seem to want to date anybody at this point either, because she seems like to be one of those women that's just insecure and everything. And after the video thing really didn't seem to work out, Jack and his girlfriend make preparations, and they let him wear one of Jack's nice, glorious suits, dress suits, and they set up a date for Perry and Lydia to go on, and Jack and his girlfriend, Perry and Lydia, they go to a Chinese restaurant and everything, and Perry starts to attract Lydia more and more from here, even though he knows that it's going to take a lot of courage and everything, but he gives it his best shot, and it's a home run, kind of, or at least it's made it all the way to third base anyway, and yeah, he even like makes a song about Lydia and everything, and then he ends up walking Lydia home. They kiss each other goodnight and everything, and unfortunately, Perry sees a vision of the Red Knight. Now, this ain't the first vision of the Red Knight he's seen. I mean, before Perry showed Jack the Holy Grail, you know, and all that in that like apartment that looks like a castle. That was like the first time you saw like Perry's vision of the Red Knight, and this is like probably the at least second vision of the Red Knight in the movie, because he was seeing that as his wife was being killed at that bar or restaurant, wherever there was they were at. And he ends up in the hospital, and he's in a coma. And Jack realizes from here he must get that Holy Grail from that rich man that lives in that apartment that looks like a castle. And Jack was in so much denial before that, because he doesn't want to believe that any of this stuff is real anymore, because in the 90s, medieval material like the Holy Grail and this, yada, 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 it's not really relevant anymore to him and the ordinary person. But since Perry is this peculiar, and he realized that Perry's not going to snap out of his coma unless he gets the Holy Grail in that castle. Not to mention, Perry, when he's in his coma, he's on a bed with dinosaur, you know, sheets and everything, which was a common thing in the early 90s. Even I had dinosaur sheets and bedspread for a while myself. And I even had Mickey Mouse quilt. But yeah, I mean that's just the thing, you know. It was like one of those typical stuff you would normally see back in the early '90s and even like throughout. Because but it seems like even like around the late '90s, early 2000s, little boys didn't really have dinosaur wallpaper or bedspread anymore. But anyway, that's enough about that. I will go on ahead and get to the point here. Jack realizes that the only way Perry's going to come out of the coma is if he gets him the Holy Grail. And but like I said, yeah, along with the dinosaur, he was also holding a Pinocchio doll that this homeless boy ended up handing over to him. He even like said, "Is anybody here named Jiminy?" That happened earlier in the movie. I kind of didn't really talk about that part because it more or less wasn't really a real connection to the main part of the story. But anyway, yeah. But anyway, Jack gets into gear. He does some cat burglaring, and he does his best to overcome all the obstacles, including the sounding alarm. He quickly gets the Holy Grail, is able to get out of there without being completely detected, so they have no clue that it was him that stole it. But he gets it for Perry. Perry is out of his coma and even doing like a choir class there in the hospital. I like New York in June. How about you? How about you? Yeah, and even Lydia comes and reunites with Perry and everything. The two of them have a moment. Then Jack reconciles with his girlfriend. I keep forgetting his girlfriend. I can't even pronounce the lady that even played Mercedes Ruehl or something. That's the name of the actress. She wasn't really ongoing popular, but she made some guest appearances in TV shows, like in an episode of Cosby Show and everything like that. She was mostly just known for stuff like that. And yeah, he goes over to her, reconciles, and then the movie ends with Jack and Perry lying naked. This time Jack has joined Perry with being naked, and they're both staring at the moon. I like New York in June. How about you? But yeah, this is a very good movie with Robin Williams for sure, though. Even though it's a drama movie, and I'm not really completely into dramas, this is one of the exceptions for that, because it's even got a lot of medieval stuff and everything, and I'm a big fan of both Robin Hood and King Arthur. They're my two top favorite fairy tales. And, yeah, since it relates to that kind of stuff, and I'm actually into it to a very good degree, as well as Shaolin mock films and everything, this really, allows me to actually approve of it. I mean, I actually really do like this movie a lot, and it's definitely a very great recommendable movie. I'll go on ahead and straight for the rating for this movie. I would have to say that I would give this movie a solid 8 out of 10. It is an outstanding movie. I mean, if you're a fan of Robin Williams and like Robin Williams films, or if you're a fan of medieval stuff, or just want a good drama comedy to watch, there's a high probability that you would like this movie. I would say it's definitely a very great one. And my other final thoughts for this is this movie doesn't really seem like it was like that commercialized or anything, because it's not really as known as other titles that Robin Williams did, like Mrs. Doubtfire, Jumanji, Aladdin, even Flubber and all that. It seems like those are like a lot more well-known movies that Robin Williams has done. Even Good Morning Vietnam, and it seems like Cadillac Man, which came out a year before this. More people, I think, are familiar with that than The Fisher King. But like I said, therefore, I think The Fisher King is a recommendable movie, and I would encourage anybody to check it out. It's a really great movie, and it's got a lot of good entertaining elements, and it's got a lot of 90s nostalgia in it. I mean, it shows you what life was like in New York City in 1991, 92, around there. Back when George H.W. Bush was president in office. before Bill Clinton came and defined the 90s even brighter. Yeah. It's just amazing that George H.W. and Bill Clinton are the last two reliable presidents we really had. I don't want to go that deep into politics, but I tell you, it was just an amazing world in the 90s, I can tell you, though. And, you know, even the 2000s had its moments. Most of the 2010s had its moments, too, but seems like things have been a little bit boring from 2019 from then on out, even though I had a lot of good moments in 2019. And 2020 was the perfect time to spend more time at home, catching up on what you would rather do for fun. Then, after the COVID restrictions became less strict, we all had to go out in the community again. We had to wear masks. Then vaccines came along. It's like, I think a part of us just has a lot of that lazy energy left in us after what happened at the COVID lockdown and everything. And it's also sad to know that Robin Williams is no longer with us, but he at least didn't have to see the COVID world, you know, and standing 6 feet apart and all that. He's actually at least kind of fortunate that he didn't have to see all that and stuff, even though it's not really as bad as people may seem it to be. But it kind of depressed me for a while, and I was just, for like a few days, I was just out of it on everything. But even though I did adapt after that. But yeah, I mean, Robin Williams did have a wonderful, successful acting career, but it did seem like, you know, as time went on, you know, he a lot of the movies he would like later make in the 2000s. Seeing the fact that The Fisher King is a TriStar Columbia Sony movie, seems like a lot of the movies he made in the 2000s, like 1 Hour Photo, The Final Cut, they were made by little minor distributors. It seemed like, you know, after the 90s, Robin Williams wasn't in a lot of over-the-top distributed films, like stuff from Warner Brothers, Columbia, Sony, or Disney, or... Yeah, he wasn't in really as many of those in the 2000s like he was in the 90s. And his depression grew deeper too and everything. And it's good to know that, like, when you see Robin Williams in movies, even like The Fisher King, I mean, you can kind of tell that he's a little bit more open about his depressed side and all that. And he used laughter as a coping mechanism so that he could survive while at the same time having his acting career be intact and everything. This really helped him a lot. And depression is something that I've been diagnosed with myself. And I know the feeling because I goof off, even though I do it in a little bit more of a sharp tongue manner. And I may offend people at times with mine. I still know how to use sarcasm and wit to overcome depression and everything, and Robin Williams did just that. Jim Carrey does it. You know, John Belushi, Chris Farley, they did it too. It's just amazing that if you act like a goofball or embrace a lot of that negativeness of yourself and make humor out of it, you can actually kind of make it in society and everything, as long as you do it around the right people, which sometimes that can be a little more difficult to do. The way stuff is now, it's like, you know, a lot of the stuff we ended up getting in the 90s, you know, some of those movies and everything, TV shows, it's like, they were airing now, they'd probably be off the air, like, after maybe even 5 episodes at best. Just amazing and how stuff has changed in the media and everything. But anyway, this concludes it for Movie Reviews, Episode 4, The Fisher King. Like I said, as for Silence of Lambs, that probably won't do the next, you know, that's another movie that came out in 1991, and I don't want to be flat out since I've already reviewed stuff from 97, New Line films and everything. I kind of need to do more variety, so, yeah, I mean, I know, just because a movie comes out in the same year, that, other than that, they're not always alike, but, nonetheless, I don't know what movie I'll review next, but I'm thinking for at least the 6th one, maybe, if better yet, the 8th. I'll do Silence of the Lambs then. But anyway, this will conclude it for Movie Reviews, Episode 4. I'm out.